Chapter 7. How to use the Jazz Melodic Minor Scale. The Jazz Melodic Minor Scale is derived from the traditional classical melodic minor scale. It is the most used over a dominant seventh chord. As you can see, the classical version of the melodic minor scale has the flat third and raised sixth and seventh scale degree ascending, but when descending, the seventh and sixth scale degrees are lowered like the natural minor scale. Now let's take a look at the form of the Jazz Melodic Minor Scale. With the Jazz Melodic Minor Scale, the sixth and seventh scale degree are raised both ascending and descending. This makes for very interesting possibilities. I know that at this point you're thinking, boy oh boy, more scales to learn. Fortunately, if you have studied music, you already have a background in music and already know most of this. Now it's just the addition of the new material to add to the mix. The goal is to imprint the shape and sound of the scales into your memory, and also to have a variety of ways to group the notes of the scale, which will come in handy when we want to make melodies. We are never going to be improvising by simply going up and down the scales. We also have to learn how to comfortably start playing on a scale without having to start with the tonic note. Make sure to also work on the scales by starting on each note of the scale. Now, as you can see coming up, here are the 7 modes of the Jazz Melodic Minor Scale. Depending upon on which jazz book you are reading, the names for these modes could be different, but the purpose is the same. So Mode 1, Melodic Minor. Mode 2, Dorian Flat 9 or Flat 2. Mode 3, Lydian Augmented. Mode 4, Lydian Dominant. Mode 5, Mixolydian Flat 13 or Flat 6. Mode 6, Locrian Natural 2, sometimes called Locrian N9 Sharp 2. Finally, we have Mode 7, which is the Super Locrian Alt. Just like the modes of the major scale, the modes of the Jazz Melodic Minor Scale all start on different notes of the minor scale, which result in the changing intervals depending upon which note you start on. The result, though, is the versatility of the scale when you have extensions to a chord. And here I have also included for your convenience all the melodic minor scales and their modes coming up. All these melodic minor scales and modes are also available in my book and on my website jazzbook.com. Now, let's take a look at each mode for what it can offer the improvising musician. Mode 1, Jazz Melodic Minor. This is usually used for the 1 minor major 7th chord. That would be spelled C, D, E flat, F, G, A, B, C. Mode 2, this would be used for the Dorian Flat 2. It's generally reserved for D7 sus flat 9 or 5-7 flat 9. It can be played over a minor 7th chord, and the flat 2 would be an avoid note. This would be spelled D, E flat, F, G, A, B, C, D. Mode 3, Lydian Augmented. Because of the sharp 4 and sharp 5, it is generally played over a major 7 sharp 5 chord, but can also be played over a regular major 7th chord for a really wild effect. This would be spelled E flat, F, G, A, B, C, D, E flat. Mode 4, this is Lydian Dominant. Because of the sharp 4, it is usually played over a 5-7 sharp 11, but can also be played over a regular 5/7 chord. It is spelled F, G, A, B, C, D, E flat, F. Mode 5. This is the Mixolydian Flat 6. It can be used for the 5/7 chord as well as the 5/7 flat 13th chord. It is spelled G, A, B, C, D, E flat, F, G. Mode 6, half diminished or Locrian natural and 9. This is used over the half diminished like 1 minor 7 flat 5 or 1 minor 9 flat 5 chord. It is spelled A, B, C, D, E flat, F, G, A. Mode 7, this is the altered. It is used over a 5-7 alt chord, all available extensions, and regular 5-7 chords. And it is spelled B, C, D, E flat, F, G, A, B. And of course, there are many other uses for these wonderful scales. You can use a melodic minor scale that is one whole step or 2 semitones above the chord that it will resolve to. An example would be a G7 that resolves to a 1 or a C. You can also think a fifth above the 5-7 chord by using the D melodic minor scale. For altered dominant 7th chords such as G7 sharp 5, the melodic scale would be G sharp, 1 semitone above the dominant. In short, we can think of using melodic minor scale a fifth above an unaltered dominant 7th chord or a semitone above an altered dominant 7th chord. If the unaltered dominant 7th chord resolution goes to a 1 minor 7, it is more agreeable to play the melodic minor scale 1/4 above G7 to C minor 7 instead of 1/5 above. The melodic minor scale would be C melodic minor. When you have a 2 minor 7, 5-7, 1 minor 7 progression, example, D minor 7 to G7 to a 1 minor 7, you can use a D melodic minor scale for both the 2 minor 7 as well as the 5-7. Another option is when you have a 2 minor 5-7, 1 minor 7 progression. You can use a melodic minor scale located a minor third above the 2 minor 7 chord. Example, if you have a 2 minor 7 chord, use the F melodic minor scale on the 2 minor 7 chord. An altered dominant 7th chord can use the melodic minor scale 1 semitone above the chord in question. Example would be, if you have a G7 sharp 5, use the A flat melodic minor scale. Okay, so it's time for a very short music theory review. An unaltered dominant 7th chord has only the fundamental notes in the chord, such as the 1, 3, 5, flat 7. Altered dominant 7th chords have an altered chord tone, such as a 1, 3, sharp 5, flat 7, etc. The altered scale of a chord can be constructed from the melodic minor scale 1 semitone above the chord. If the chord is G7, then the melodic minor scale would be G sharp. It can be played over an altered 5-7 chord such as a G7. Here is a summary for the uses of the 7 modes. This should be coming up right now. So for mode 1, the jazz melodic minor scale mode 1, it can be used for major 7th as passing tones or a 1 minor with a major 7th, and that is usually spelled again C, D, E flat, F, G, A, B, C. Mode 2, the Dorian flat 2, not very common, but it can be used over a 5-7 sus flat 9 or 5-7 flat 9. It is spelled D, E flat, F, G, A, B, C, D. Mode 3, the Lydian augmented. This can be used over major 7th sharp 5 chords, but it can also be played over major 7th chords, again as I stated earlier, if you want to have a really wild effect. This would be spelled E flat, F, G, A, B, C, D, E flat. Okay, mode 4, Lydian dominant flat 7. This can be used on a dominant 7th with sharp 11s, and it also works on regular 5-7s. And this is spelled F, G, A, B, C, D, E flat, F. Okay, mode 5, Mixolydian flat 6. This could be used for a dominant 7th, flat 13th chords. Can also be used 1/5 above the unaltered 5-7th chord. So if it's spelled G, A, B, C, D, E flat, F, G, You think a fifth above, you would start on D, E, F, G, A, B, C sharp, D. Mode 6, Locrian natural 2. This can be used in minor 7th flat 5 chord, spelled A, B, C, D, E flat, F, G, A. Finally, mode 7, Superlocrian. This can be used for all altered chords with extensions, such as a dominant 7 flat 5, dominant 7 sharp 5, dominant 7 sharp 9, dominant 7 flat 5 sharp 9, etc. And this will be spelled B, C, D, E flat, F, G, A, B. Okay, just when you think you've had enough, the 4 most used modes of the melodic minor scale. 1. Melodic minor scale first mode. It is typically played over a minor major 7th chord. 2. The Lydian augmented, which is the 3rd mode of the melodic minor scale, works very well over major 7 sharp 5 chords. 3. Lydian dominant, which is the 4th mode of the melodic minor scale. It works very well over dominant 7 chords that have a sharp 11. 4. Superlocrian, or altered scale. This is the 7th mode of the melodic minor scale. The 7th mode of the melodic minor scale is normally used with altered chords, and with altered chords, some or all of the chords upper extensions 9 through the 13th that are altered. Not all of these altered notes need to be present to use this. You can utilize the melodic minor scale over major, minor, and dominant chords equally well, so there are many applications from learning just this one scale. Hint: make sure that when you are looking at individual chords, think modal, not as if the chords are in the key of the jazz melodic scale. There will be dissonant notes that may or may not stick out when you use the jazz melodic minor scale in one of its modes. You have total freedom on deciding if you want the dissonant notes to stick or use them as passing tones. Okay, now let's look at some examples. Okay, what's coming up now is a song I put together that is a series of chords to get the effect of what it's like to use all these different techniques. And so you're going to see a real hodgepodge of chords and progressions here. And I did it just so you can get a realistic idea of what I did and what I thought out, so that when we go through the analysis, this will give you a better understanding and idea how to pursue this when you tackle it and get into it. So coming up now is a song called Melodic Minor Scale Flute Improv. Okay, let's see how all this works. I have the melodic minor scale example marked with the measure numbers. Let's take it measure by measure. Measure 1, it's a B flat major 7, so I decided to call that a B flat Ionian. Very self-explanatory. First mode of the B flat major scale. Measure 2 is a C minor 7 flat 5. I called that C Locrian natural. Because it is a half diminished chord, I chose to use the 6th mode of the E flat melodic minor scale. Measure 3, D minor 7, I call that D Phrygian, and I chose this scale so that I would have an A natural in it. Measure 4, E flat minor 7, E flat Dorian. I use the Dorian mode of the D flat scale. And the second half, that A flat 7 sharp 11, I chose the A flat Lydian dominant because since it is a sharp 11 dominant 7th chord, I chose the 4th mode from the E flat melodic minor scale. Okay, measure 5, D minor 7. Again, I call that D Phrygian. The second half, that's a D flat 7 sharp 11. I call that D flat Lydian dominant using the 4th degree of the A flat melodic minor scale. Measure 6, that's a C minor 7, so I called that C Dorian. Second half is a B7 sharp 9. I decided to call that B Lydian dominant, which is the 4th mode of the F sharp melodic minor scale. Measure 7, that's a B flat major 7. I just called it B flat Ionian again. Measure 8, that's a C minor 7 flat 5. So I ended up using C Locrian natural 2, which is the 6th mode of the E flat melodic minor scale. The second half is an F7, so I called that F Mixolydian. Measure 9 is a B flat major 7. We've been there, B flat Ionian. Measure 10, this should look familiar, C minor 7 flat 5. I called that a C Locrian natural 2. It's a C Locrian natural because it is a half diminished chord. I chose to use the 6th mode of the E flat melodic minor scale. Measure 11, that's a D minor 7 D Aeolian. Measure 12, E flat minor 7, I call that E flat Dorian. Second half, it's an A flat 7 sharp 11, so I decided to use A flat Lydian dominant because of the sharp 11th. Measure 13, D minor 7 D Aeolian. Second half is D flat 7 sharp 11. So I called that D flat Lydian dominant, which is the 4th mode of the A flat melodic minor scale. Measure 14, C minor 7, that is C Dorian. Second half is a B7 sharp 9, so I called that B Lydian dominant, which is the 4th mode of the F sharp melodic minor scale. Measure 15 is a B flat major 7, so that's B flat Ionian. Measure 16, the same thing. Measure 17 is an A minor 7 flat 5, so I called that A Locrian natural 2, which is the 6th mode of the C melodic minor scale. Measure 18 is a D7, so that's a D Phrygian. Measure 19 is a G minor 7, so I call that G Aeolian. Measure 20, the same thing. Measure 21 is a C7, so I call that C Mixolydian. Measure 22 is a C minor 7 flat 5, so I call that C Locrian natural 2. C Locrian natural because it is a half diminished chord. I chose to use the 6th mode of the E flat melodic minor scale. Measure 23 is a C minor 7 flat 5, same as measure 22. Measure 24 is an F minor 7 F Mixolydian. Measure 25 is a B flat major 7th, which is a B flat Ionian. Measure 26, again, is a C minor 7 flat 5. As I did earlier, I called this a C Locrian natural 2, which is the 6th mode of the E flat melodic minor scale. Measure 27, I called that D Phrygian. Measure 28, that's an E flat minor 7, which is E flat Dorian. The second half is an A flat 7 sharp 11, so I called that A flat Lydian dominant. And being a sharp 11th 7th chord, I chose the 4th scale from the E flat melodic minor scale. Measure 29 is a D minor 7, so it's D Aeolian. Second half is D flat 7 sharp 11. So D flat Lydian dominant, which is the fourth degree of the A flat melodic minor scale. Measure 30 is a C minor 7, which is C Dorian. Second half again is a B7 sharp 9. So I call that B Lydian dominant, which is mode 4 of the melodic minor scale. Measure 31 is a B flat major 7, which is B flat Ionian. Measure 32 and 33, the same thing. As you can see, I use the different modes of the melodic minor scale throughout this song. Now, as far as the rest of the chords, I use a colorful array of scale forms to cover the gamut of chord types for the rest of the song. You now have a specific scale form for the specific chord types. Pretty cool. No more guessing. Let's take a look at one more example. This should be coming up for you now. This is my melodic minor scale example, part 2. Okay, just like the first example, this is quite an array of scales and chords, isn't it? And okay, so now let's take a look at this analysis. In measures 1 through 6, I use the standard modes of the major scale to handle these chords. Yes, you could also use the pentatonic scales for these. In measure 7, I use the G7 Dorian flat 2 mode for the scale. In measure 10, I use the standard mode of the major scale to handle this chord. Yes, you could also use pentatonic scales for this. In measure 11, I use the C-sharp diminished scale. Remember the form, whole step, half step? Yep. In measures 12 through 14, I again use the standard modes of the major scale. For the last half of measure 12, I use the B diminished scale. In measure 15, I use the G7 Dorian flat 2 mode 2 for the scale. In measures 16 through 24, I use the standard modes of the major scale to handle these chords. And for the third time, yes, you could also use pentatonic scales for these, depending upon the effect you are trying to create. In measure 19, I use the C-sharp diminished scale. In measure 20, I use the E diminished scale. All these are whole step, half step. In measure 25, I use the F Lydian Augmented Melodic Minor Scale Mode 3. In measure 26, I use the B-flat Dorian and A-flat Mixolydian scales. In measure 27, I use the G Dorian Flat 2 Melodic Minor Scale Mode 2 for the G7 Flat 9. In measure 28, I use C Dorian. In measure 29, I use F Mixolydian. In measure 30 to the end, I use B-flat Ionian. You should be getting a pretty good handle on this by now. If the information is still a little fuzzy, just go back and reread this chapter and review the analysis that I have done for you. On my website, which is jazzbook.com, spelled jazzbk.com, there are many practice songs, PDFs, and audio backing tracks for you to practice to. Please work with them over and over until it all begins to become natural for you. And when you feel ready, then you can finally proceed to the next chapter.